School lunch challenge, back again. Today for lunch, we had a whole grain pretzel, raisins, milk, some yogurt, a pear, and cheese. I am going to use all of these ingredients to go ahead and make a pear raisin Irish soda bread. So let's get started. There are a few things that we want to do as we're setting up for our pear Irish soda bread. And the first thing is we have 1.5 ounces of milk that I measured, and we're going to need to sour this because a typical Irish soda bread would call for a buttermilk so that it could react with the baking soda in the product. But we don't have buttermilk, so we're going to sour our milk. And the way we do that is we're taking 1/2 teaspoon of vinegar and we're placing that directly into our milk, and we're going to set that aside and let it sit, and that will thicken the milk, slightly sour it, which will help react in the bread. Then we're going to go ahead and take just a glass of some water, room temperature water, and we're going to use 1/2 box of raisins. You can put more or less if you like, and allow those to soak in the mixture while we're setting up our biscuit mix. So to get our mixture ready for our Irish soda bread, we're going to go ahead and take the pretzel that we're using and break it up. You want to crumble it up as best you can, and then you do want to sift it. So because we want to get all of the outer portion of the pretzel off. So just go ahead and break that up. You don't want to let it sit for too long. If you do get it and you don't make it the first day, you don't want your pretzel to get hard. Okay, but sift it up, break it up, and as you're going through, you can see that I'm starting to get a little bit of fine, almost breadcrumb look to it. And this is going to yield about 1/2 cup in there. So if you didn't have pretzel, you could use bagel. You can use just plain breadcrumbs, plain, not the seasoned kind. Or you can simply add in an extra 1/2 cup of flour. But this is whole grain, so we are adding in some good grains for us and adding it in. So just keep breaking that apart, get as much as you can out so that the only thing that remains is going to be this outer layery skin. So I'm going to keep going on that. So you can see after I sifted it, it looks like it's breadcrumb, which is basically what it is. It's pretzel. To the pretzel crumb, I'm going to add 1/2 cup of flour. You may need more as you're starting to shape the biscuit or the Irish soda bread, which is a biscuit. 1 tablespoon of sugar, 1/8 teaspoon of salt, and 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda. So baking soda in the yellow box, not baking powder. You can see that. Definitely two different things, and because we have the sour milk, we want to make sure that it reacts properly. And I'm just going to go ahead and mix that around with my hands to get that all incorporated. Next, I'm going to cut in 1 tablespoon of butter. So I put that pat of butter in there, and I break that apart, and I'm going to rub it with my fingers. This would be the same technique for making a pie dough as well, but rub it back and forth with my fingers to break apart the fat, help creating the structure and the texture of the Irish soda bread. Now, if you like, you can also add in 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon. Not classic flavoring in Irish soda bread, but it will complement the pear and the raisin. It's not necessary though, so we're going to go ahead and leave that out, but you can add it in. So if you can see here, rubbing and dropping, my fingers are still remaining dry, and the mixture has no visible chunks of fat, which is exactly what I want. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and get my pear peeled and chopped if you haven't done that already. So I've peeled my pear. I'm just going to go ahead and take a small paring knife and go straight down the flesh of the pear, making sure that I have a good hold of it, getting rid of the core. Then I'm just going to go in and try and get a nice small dice so that it distributes throughout the mixture. So I've cut in my mixture. I have my pear. I'm going to add it in that it's been chopped up. And I'm also going to go ahead and take my raisins that have been soaking. I'm just going to pull them out, make sure I squeeze out the water, and place them into the mixture. From here, I want to mix them around in the dry flour before I add in my buttermilk. And then I'm going to make sure that the mixture is all evenly mixed. So go ahead and get every raisin out of there. So you could use a spatula, a fork, your hands if you want to, anything, to bring the raisins and the pears throughout the mixture. And I just added in the sour milk. I'm going to go ahead and start mixing that together. I like to start out with a spatula or a rubber scraper. Now, if you had not enough of your pretzel mixture, you might find that this is quite wet and you need a little bit more flour. Okay, but we're going to flour our board and knead it slightly. So taking an additional amount of flour and just placing that on the table, your cutting board. Take your pear mixture and we're going to work in the flour. So that was about a tablespoon underneath and about a tablespoon on the top, and just pushing it onto itself. So we want a tender product at the end. So we're going to kind of fold it in half, push it on itself, and bring that together working in the flour. If it starts to stick on your table, you can simply just add more flour underneath. So we want to do this about 10 times, bringing that and working it to develop the flour within the product, specifically the gluten. Okay, and you can see it's still a little tacky, so I'm going to put another spoonful, about a tablespoon, on the top, turn it over, and then just simply mix it with my hands. So bringing this together, and then now I want to shape it into a ball. So classically, an Irish soda bread will have a little bit of flour sifted on top. So we would take our flour sifter that we just used to mix our pretzel, make that into a nice ball, and then a patty cake. Sift the flour on top of it if desired, and create a little X on the top. And an X. And then this is going to go in the oven. So it's going to go on a pan in the oven at 350 degrees for about a half an hour. And we'll check it in about 20 minutes. We'll see where it's at, but pretty much to a half an hour, nice golden crust. And we'll wait for it to come out of the oven, warm and hot, and slice it. So I've allowed my bread to cool, and now we're gonna slice into it, check out the interior. Nice slices. Okay, and we have our pear, raisin, pretzel, Irish soda bread. So we used our school lunch. Challenge accepted, challenge completed, and the bread is delicious. Have it for breakfast.